and then I need to eventually study the big beautiful bill. All right, welcome to the channel. What's good? What's good? Supreme Court Senate hold meeting for federal judges. Let's dive right into it.
Hearing is a joint undertaking by the Subcommittee on the Constitution and the Subcommittee on Federal Courts because our country is facing a constitutional crisis.
Yeah, because our dictator, Donald Trump, is getting challenged through checks and balances. How dare he? How dare my dictator? How dare Daddy Trump? How dare my authoritarian leader gets challenged through checks and balances? That's not okay. I'm going to skip all this bullshit from the Ted Cruz.
Joe Biden combined. Zero nationwide injunctions were issued. Zero. That's for 150 years.
Then why don't Donald Trump stop doing bullshit? I hate MAGA so much. Oh, why, bro? I hate them so much. Of course, Donald Trump. It's like saying zero people challenge our German leaders. Zero of them got challenged. But now you guys want to have war against Hitler? Man, this is a crisis. I'm not comparing Trump to Hitler, but I just wanted to make a point because the comparison that, oh, nobody else got this, but Trump is. Well, Trump needs to stop doing bullshit. Simple as that. All right, I don't want to hear that fucking bot-ass Ted Cruz talk.
When he was president, nominated to the bench radicals. They used to far more implement. This hearing is to highlight the effects of this judicial tyranny, of single judges deciding they know America, democracy.
When I chaired the Subcommittee on Federal Courts, we held hearings on the influence on our judiciary of dark money from the fossil fuel industry and from creepy billionaires. My Republican colleagues weren't interested in helping solve that problem, but those hearings were based on facts. Years of financial disclosures showed a secret billionaire gifts program for amenable Supreme Court justices. Written evidence suggested a justice may have failed to pay taxes on a $270,000 loan that was forgiven, and that false statements were made about a yacht. A mountain of evidence revealed President Trump outsourced to billionaires and their dark money fixer, Leonard Leo, the selection of his judges and Supreme Court justices, which President Trump admitted just last week. Apparently, Leo also, and I'm quoting Trump here, openly brags about controlling the judges his creepy billionaires got appointed. This hearing will be different. A lot of hypocrisy about nationwide injunctions against the Trump administration after Republican colleagues cheered the nationwide injunctions that courts issued against the Biden administration. Indeed, some colleagues filed lawsuits asking for nationwide injunctions against the Biden administration. But now they're shocked that there are nationwide injunctions. Here are some facts everyone should bear in mind during this hearing. Fact number one. Donald Trump's administration is engaged in unprecedented lawlessness, period. In less than 5 months, President Trump has issued almost as many executive orders as President Biden did during 4 years in office. Many are flat out on their face illegal, as any first-year law student could tell you. Trump tried to end 14th Amendment birthright citizenship. He tried to punish law firms' First Amendment rights to associate with his perceived political enemies. His fossil fuel minion at OMB, Russ Vought, withheld millions of dollars that Congress had appropriated under Article 1. More than 20 years ago, originalist icon Scalia wrote about how illegal that is. The madcap pace and roughshod lawlessness of Trump's executive actions mean district judges across the country are striking them down, not because of judicial obstruction, because he is breaking the law. Hearings like this prop up a narrative that bad courts are stopping dear leader Donald Trump because some cabal of Democratic judges is out to get him. Wrong. The reality is much simpler. He's breaking the law and doing it a lot, and judges are doing their job. It's not just me saying that. Trump-appointed judges from across the country have struck down his illegal actions, holding, for instance, that Trump can't punish the AP for its reporting, that his misuse of the Alien Enemies Act is illegal, and that the administration can't withhold billions of appropriated public health funds. Trump judges. Hardly a liberal conspiracy.
Trump
As
judges.
it tries to prop up Trump's illegal orders, the MAGA Justice Department is fast destroying its reputation with judges who've said about DOJ arguments, bad faith, shoddy, an admitted lack of any evidence whatsoever, deliberate evasion. Shocking not only to judges, but to the intuitive sense of liberty that Americans far removed from courthouses still hold dear. And the prospect of contempt findings looms. Fact number 2, failing in court, Donald Trump and his allies attack judges and their families. Trump has called judges who ruled against him communists, USA-hating, and monsters. A Republican in Congress put up a wanted poster with judges' faces outside his office. Elon Musk and Laura Loomer have used X to fire up the right wing's flying monkeys about judges, even adding photos of family members in a seemingly coordinated campaign to harass and intimidate. A test is coming of MAGA Attorney General Bondi. Will she let the Marshal Service investigate these threats and their orchestration?
Of course not.
There's plenty of predication to look into: conspiracy, aiding and abetting, or RICO enterprise liability. Will she let them? Which brings me to fact number 3. In a 6-week period from March through April, 162 judges received threats to themselves or family members of harassment or violence. 162. A pattern was evident. Many had ruled against Trump and then were targeted. The latest tactic is a campaign to send pizzas to judges or family members' homes using the name of the murdered son of a federal judge. It's not clear yet who is behind that campaign.
Yo, that's insane.
But it's not hard to figure out the message. Stop ruling against Trump or else. These attacks have gotten so bad that the Chief Justice issued a statement, and the Judicial Conference formed a Judicial Security and Independence Task Force. Now I'd like to see some sign that the threats are being duly investigated. To the extent that this hearing encourages that animus further, it is deeply regrettable.
He cooked.
I thank Senator Whitehouse and now recognize Chairman Schmidt.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Cruz. As chairman of the Subcommittee on the Constitution, I'm glad that we've convened this hearing. Universal injunctions.
Bro, he's going bald too. I think I'm going bald, bro. Am I cooked? I feel like I'm only going bald because of the product I put in my hair. I never thought. Like, I obviously still have plenty of hair, but I don't know, man. I feel like I'm going bald. Maybe I should just cut it all off. Maybe next time I go to the barbershop, I'll cut it all off.
Effectively didn't happen for the first 200 years of our Constitution. Yet they become a fixture in our legal system in the last 20, especially when Donald Trump occupies the...
Maybe because he's doing dumb shit. That's just such a fucking dog shit ass argument. Well, they're doing things that they've never done before. Even though Donald Trump is doing things no other president has done before. I guess.
The White House. The courts can play an important role in reining in an executive branch that's out of control. This is especially important when reining in actions by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats who act outside of the scope of their congressionally authorized authority.
You mean like Doge?
But what happened?
You mean like Doge? You mean like Doge? Of course not.
When Article 3 has no limits. As listed in the hearing's title, Alexander Hamilton called the judiciary the least dangerous branch in Federalist 78. And historically, in Federalist 78, Historic was responding to the anti-federalist Brutus, who was raising the alarm bell over the seemingly unchecked power of Article 3 to subvert the will of the people and the rights of citizens. Hamilton
I wonder if he thought that the executive branch would incorporate an individual who consolidated so much power that he can control Congress. He can most of the judges are right wing for the Supreme Court, and of course he is using he has a whole entire executive branch filled with loyalists, and even created a department known as Doge without any permission to do unconstitutional things with going through people's records, making certain cuts. So, you know what? I don't think they realized that something that they really didn't want, an authoritarian, that's why they left England to get away from the king. They didn't think that the president will become that, right? That's why all these checks exist. It'd be one thing if it's unvetted, but I think everything's perfectly reasonable. But MAGA has no integrity.
Hamilton responded that judges will be forced to behave because nothing guarantees that their orders are enacted. Judges can't raise an army. They can't collect taxes or duties. As Hamilton said, the judiciary must ultimately depend on the aid of the executive branch to enforce its judgments. To date, the Trump
and the executive branch can't do a bunch of the shit they're doing, like tariffs. That's supposed to be something Congress can do, but the executive branch is doing it. Yeah, I'm done with listening to Smith, the fucking mega bot. All right, let's go to the next guy.
Clearly intended the former. It's time for a reset. The American people elected President Trump to secure our border and restore our nation. I look forward to the testimony of the professors, and I urge this committee to advance reforms that uphold the separation of powers.
Yeah, only Donald Trump is allowed to have power. Everybody else is not. I don't care if MAGA is getting pissed off in the comment section. You support an authoritarian cultist leader.
Thank you. I now recognize Ranking Member Welch.
Thank you very much. The concrete issues of a universal injunction or forum shopping are things that we can address. But there is a context that we're all operating in, and this is where I disagree with my colleagues, particularly Senator Cruz and his recitation of what he saw as a judicial rampage. This moment we're in our country, is testing whether the separation of powers, three co-equal branches of government, shall endure. That's really the question. We've seen an abdication of constitutional responsibility by the Congress. It's appalling. Ceding to a president the ability to impound funds, something that was declared unconstitutional in the Nixon Doctrine. Ceding to the president tariff authority, which in the Constitution belongs to the policymakers in Congress. Just two examples of Congress ceding its constitutional authority. That's done willingly by my colleagues in the House and some in the Senate. We should reassert our authority. But the second leg of that, the transfer of authority to the executive, is the rampant attack on the judiciary. And Senator Cruz gave some examples of what he thought was judicial overreach. Each one of those examples, as I see it, was the judges doing their job. They disagreed. And when they disagreed, it was asserted by the president and by the attorney general that they were monsters, they were renegades, they were out of control. It was an ad hominem attack because the judges were doing their jobs. And I will say we can deal with the forum shopping, which is something the private bar gets involved in. We can deal with universal injunctions. But the all-out assault on judges, because they make decisions, which is the job it is they have to do. And the decision is, has a president exceeded his authority? The decision is, has the Congress passed a law that deviates from constitutional requirements? Those are so profoundly important to keep that separation of powers and to keep the competition between the three branches so that we don't have absolute power vested in a single person, and that's the chief executive. So when, Senator Cruz, you talk about a judge making this decision about keeping somebody here. It's called due process. I'm for due process. When we talk about judges striking down under the international trade agreement, whether the president has authority to set these tariffs, and it's a 3-judge decision, one appointed by Trump, one appointed by Obama, one appointed by Reagan, and they say the president didn't have authority, I would say that is the judges doing their jobs. But what is most profoundly important for the well-being of our country is that the Congress reassert its authority to pass laws, to restrict the executive or to empower the executive, but not to cede our authority to the executive ever. And it's our responsibility to do every single thing we can to validate the legitimate exercise of the decision-making authority.
I mean, this guy's cooking right now. Ultimately, a lot of the complaints from MAGA about what the courts are doing is not a complaint based off any type of legal principle or constitutional principle. It's bitching and complaining that people are even disagreeing with Donald Trump. The fact that anybody's disagreeing with Donald Trump is a problem. And they try to use these comparisons to other presidents to not make it seem like Donald Trump is doing something that is very not different from any other president. But the reality is he is doing things that is different from other presidents. He is overstepping his power. He does have consolidated power. Donald Trump is also doing things that is beyond the scope of the executive branch. No, the word also doesn't even work because the judicial branch is not doing that. They're just making sure that the power that Donald Trump wants to possess is something that's within his legal right. And oftentimes it's not. Even though Congress, all the MAGA freaking cultist dick riders, all want to cede their power to their authoritarian leader and their daddy, the court system is like, nah, I'm good off that. I don't want that. So yeah, this is pathetic.
Authority of the judiciary. I look forward to this hearing and the testimony of the witnesses. Thank you.
Thank you. I would make 2 brief observations. Number one, it is interesting as our Democrat colleagues defend these nationwide injunctions that neither of them made any reference to the fact that the number of nationwide injunctions issued in the first 4 months is greater than the entire 20th century.
You're a bitch. Why would they need to bring something up when the reason why that is the case is because Donald Trump is doing the most ridiculous things we've ever seen from a president in the first 4 months?
And is greater than all of the nationwide injunctions issued against Bush, Obama, and Biden.
Just say that you want Donald Trump to rail you in the ass, bro. Just say it. Just say it. Just say you want to get fucked in the ass by Donald Trump. Just say it. Just say it.
Combined, nor did they address the disturbing fact that of the 40 universal injunctions that have been issued in the last 4 months, 35 of them came from the same 5 judicial districts. There is a reason for this. Blue state attorneys general and radical leftist groups are seeking out.
I hate, bro. After cooking the leftists on my stream that I've been doing to start out the stream on all the woke bullshit, it's great that we're coming back to earth, to the bullshit that MAGA does. It's great. It's great, man. I get to shit on these young woke leftists that are fucking ignorant of how the world works and politics works. And then I go into the world of politics to see MAGA endorse an authoritarian. I love to see it, man. I love to see it.
Over and over and over. Exactly who the zealots are that are on the bench, and that's who they are seeking out. I will also point out that the discussion about the urgency of...
Thank you, Senator Cruz. They asked Winston Churchill after World War II how he thought history would treat him and his conduct of the war. He said, "I'm not worried about it because I plan on writing that history," which he did. Today we see an example of written history, revisionist history from the chairman with the statement that he just made about concern over the safety of federal judges. I cannot remember a single instance of what he just described, not one, when there were protests and demonstrations before the homes of judges, regardless of who appointed them, Republican or Democrat. Our feeling was they're all entitled to a guarantee of safety to the best of our ability. And that's what I did as chairman of this committee, and I hope that I believe I spoke for the Democrats in that approach. The title of this hearing says a lot. In full, the supposedly least dangerous branch, District Judge versus Trump. The idea being pushed by my Republican colleagues is not only that judicial branch and district judges are dangerous, but they are dangerous for the plain and simple reason that some judges have had the audacity to rule against President Trump. When the chairman from Texas starts talking about the number of times there's been ruling by the court, I have 3 words for him. Flood the zone. Flood the zone. When Steve Bannon was asked, what's the policy, what's the strategy of the new Trump administration, we're going to flood the zone, and they did. More executive orders issued by this president in the beginning of his presidency than any president in history, leading to more court challenges than any president in history. It seems pretty logical to me. By framing the hearing,
He's cooking. And not only is this a principle based off something that was elicited by Steve Bannon, but also very much Peter Thiel and Curtis Yarvin. Make sure you look those guys up. The big idea, and a lot of people have been noticing it, is you're just throwing a bunch of shit and hoping something sticks to the wall by creating this oversaturated chaos that Donald Trump is creating.
as they have, my Republican colleagues have shown their hand. This hearing is not really about policy or legal issues. Instead, it's about challenging the authority and legitimacy of the judiciary. They are.
Man, he said exactly what I just said, man. Maybe I am cut off for this politics stuff. Psych! I don't want to be an old man debating constantly about politics, man. I like other things. But I am a almost old man where I will talk about politics. And I will say that I'm tired of this. I don't know what I will say. I'm just chatting.
Showing their undying loyalty to their leader, the president. This hearing is merely the latest episode in an ongoing effort by President Trump and his allies to undermine the judiciary and intimidate judges who dare to rule against them. In March, the president demanded the impeachment of a federal judge simply because he ruled against his administration, calling him, quote, and I quote, I want you to hear these words, a radical left lunatic, a troublemaker and agitator. In May, President Trump referred to judges who ruled against his administration as, quote, communist radical left judges. 2 days ago, the president posted, and to quote, if the courts somehow rule against us on tariffs, which is not expected, that would allow other countries to hold our nation hostage with their anti-American tariffs that they would use against us. That would mean the economic ruination of the United States of America, end of quote. These statements that I've just read are not normal. It is difficult to imagine either President Bush, President Obama, or President Biden using such unhinged, bombastic, and childish language, or calling for the impeachment of a judge simply because that judge ruled against his administration. The reason it's difficult is because Obama, Biden never did anything like this. But imagine if they had, and how congressional Republicans would have responded. They would have shouted about it from the rooftops, posted furiously on social media, and the only person they would have considered impeaching would have been the president himself. But because this president is a Republican, because the president and his allies go after anyone who dares to speak up, because fear of political retribution is now at the core of this MAGA world, my Republican colleagues have been silent as the president has made the statements he has about judges. Instead of rushing to defend the judiciary and our system of government, they are rushing to defend the president. While my colleagues on the other side may try to make it appear as though decisions of district courts against the president are somehow dangerous, in reality, it's the attacks on the judiciary itself that are dangerous, to both the rule of law and to the actual judges themselves. I could go through chapter and verse of federal judges who have been intimidated physically. In fact, deaths that occurred in the Northern District of Illinois. One of my judges, she's now retired, lost her husband and her mother to a litigant who attacked her at her home. It's serious. I don't think it's a mere coincidence that this spike in violence against judges coincided with increasingly harsh rhetoric against the same judges and the president's personal call for the impeachment of a federal judge on March 18th. Some judges and family members have received threats in the form of hundreds of anonymous pizza deliveries to their home. Pizza deliveries? These deliveries are an effort to demonstrate that those seeking to intimidate a targeted judge know exactly where those judges live. Nearly a month ago, I sent a letter to the Attorney General Bondi and FBI Director Patel, asking them to investigate this effort with the pizza deliveries and other threats against federal judges, and to provide information on steps they're taking to protect.
All right. I want to hear the witnesses, right? Who's the witnesses? Who's the first witness? Oh, here we go.
Professor Blackman, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Chairman Cruz, Chairman Schmidt, Ranking Member Whitehouse, Ranking Member Welch, thank you so much for inviting me to testify. My name is Josh Blackman, and I'm the Centennial Chair of Constitutional Law at the South Texas College of Law, Houston. The topic of today's hearing is very timely. The supposedly least dangerous branch, district judges versus Trump. It is often repeated that we have three co-equal branches of government, but this isn't true. In Federalist 78, Hamilton described the judiciary as the least dangerous branch. Unlike Congress, which is a power of the purse, and the president has the power of the sword, the courts have mere judgment. Yet it has been deeply ingrained in our consciousness that the court's foundational role is to balance the powers of the elected branches. Indeed, Chief Justice Roberts recently boasted that the courts check the excesses of Congress and the executive. But the Chief Justice is incorrect. Indeed, Vice President Vance recently explained that Roberts expressed a profoundly wrong sentiment. Or more local to me, Judge Ho in Houston aptly observed, it is not the role of the judiciary to check the excesses of the other branches any more than it's the judiciary's role to check the excesses of any other American citizen. So the question is, who will check the excesses of the executive? At least with regard to the lower courts, you all, Congress. The Constitution refers to the federal district courts as inferior courts. Yet far too many lower court judges.
Oh, he's a MAGA guy. Gotcha. Who's this?
Long way to addressing the never-ending fights between the president and the judiciary. Thank you so much, and I welcome all of your questions.
Thank you. Professor Shaw.
All right, MAGA.
Good afternoon, chairs, ranking members, distinguished members of the subcommittees. Thank you for the invitation to testify today. I understand that the purpose of today's hearing is to discuss recent judicial rulings against the Trump administration and to situate those rulings in historical and institutional context. There is no question that the Trump administration has been on a losing streak in federal court. According to the most recent data compiled by Professor Steve Vladeck, district courts have ruled against the administration in 97 cases to date. That is a large number, but it is a number that is best understood in context. First, it has to be viewed in the context of the unprecedented volume of executive action we have seen from this administration.
Okay, now we got a reasonable. Yes, anybody against Trump is reasonable. Ha ha. No, that's not true. But it sounds like she is going to be the one to go up against Trump, and then let's hear the opening.
Alisea.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, members of the subcommittee, thank you for the invitation to testify today. It's an honor to speak with you. While the topic of today's hearing touches on many issues, my understanding is that I've been invited to address the practice of universal injunctions in particular, and that will be the focus of my testimony. An injunction is an order from a court directing an entity like a government official or a government agency to do something or refrain from doing something. Courts have been issuing injunctions for centuries, and when injunctions only grant relief to a party to the case, they're generally not controversial. What makes universal injunctions controversial is that they purport to give relief to entities that were never made parties to the case. In the birthright citizenship cases now before the court, for example, a district court judge in Seattle issued an injunction forbidding the enforcement or implementation of the president's executive order on a nationwide basis. That means that the executive order cannot be enforced against anyone, even though the only parties challenging the order were 4 states and 2 individuals. Now, universal
Sounds like another MAGA guy.
injunctions are damaging to our political and legal system for many.
Yep, definitely a MAGA guy. Okay. All right, let's get to the questions.
Prior to 1963, had any federal court issued a nationwide injunction blocking federal law or executive policy?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. Stop asking about a historical situation considering this ask about something that is relevant to how Donald Trump has been very distinct in his presidency compared to everybody else's. All these other kind of questions that you're asking is to diminish the amount of severe actions of Donald Trump. Come on.
Would you agree that from the founding through the 20th century, the federal judiciary consistently understood its powers to be limited to the parties before the court?
Yes.
President now, are they acting as a constitutional judge or as a de facto national policymaker?
It's effectively a veto in the executive branch.
Yeah, I'm not looking at any MAGA
50 states.
to MAGA circle
Paralysis
jerk.
case at hand.
Article 3 speaks to
Split Congress
many to grade
reach.
have pressed the process.
One would assume effort to require
It has.
Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you.
All right, here we go.
It strikes me that what we have here is a team that has taken the field and engaged in unprecedented numbers of fouls and unprecedentedly flagrant fouls. And when the refs blow the whistle on the unprecedented number of fouls, the partisans of the team committing the fouls call out the referees for the unprecedented number of whistles that they blow.
Shout out
To try to level set this, let me ask if you can do a yes or no answer. Let's try to go right down the panel, yes or no. Is it appropriate to call judges USA-hating monsters who want our country to go to hell?
No.
No.
No, Senator.
In general, no, Senator.
And is it appropriate to call judges lunatics who do not care even a little bit and could very well lead to the destruction of our country?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
And is it appropriate to post pictures of judges' children with the intent to incite harassment and threats?
No.
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 Okay, good. We're off to a level set. I'll take that. Professor Alessia, when you were installed in your chair, the announcement was that the chair was made possible through the generosity of Leonard Leo, trustee of both the Marble Freedom Trust and Catholic University. Is that accurate? Is that who funded your chair?
My understanding is that Leonard Leo, through the Marble Freedom Trust, directed funds that funded the chair. I think that's accurate.
And with respect to your chair, Mr. Blackman, $1 million was given to fund it through an anonymizing organization called Donors Trust, which has been called the ATM of the far right. Do you know who was behind that Donors Trust laundered donation?
I appreciate the question, Senator. I would direct all these to my college to answer.
I'm sorry, first of all, your mic's not on.
No, I appreciate the question, Senator. I direct all these questions about this to my college. Thank you.
My question is actually to you, and it's whether you know. Do you know who was behind that donation?
I appreciate the question. Anonymous gifts are as they are, and I appreciate all those questions directed to my college.
So, surprise, surprise, that the two people who support Team Trump and Team MAGA got a interesting donation or interesting. Isn't this I don't know. I feel like I've heard people on the MAGA side say something like this. Wouldn't you say this is the deep state? You know how you complain about politicians getting money. Wouldn't political figures like this, in regards to the kind of current conversation, getting money or donations, isn't that the same thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping.
Your college can't answer what you know. This is a question to you about what you know. This is a Josh Blackman question. Do you know who funded your chair?
I've answered the question.
Yes or no?
Thank you, Senator.
You can't say this. Do you realize that if you were an expert witness in a judicial proceeding, I'd be entitled to know who was funding you because it goes to bias and conflict, correct? That's basic sort of hornbook trial practice, right?
Fair enough, Senator.
I'm right about that. You'll agree.
We were invited to testify about nationwide injunction and the like. This is not something I was prepared to testify about, so that's my answer for today.
Okay.
So yes, he's correct.
Well, at least we know who funded Professor Alicia, and you won't even answer what you know. Let me turn to Professor Shaw.
Brilliant, man. He completely destroyed the credibility of the two other MAGA-tards. If someone can ask a question about her, if she got some funding, I won't push back. I don't know. So let me hear it.
Let's just say that this activity today is designed to whip up more animus against courts, and that it adds to the atmosphere of threats that the court is now experiencing. I think we're up to, is it 162 threats to judges, which is pretty impressive. And a lot of this has the appearance, at least to me, of looking like it was orchestrated, looking like it was instigated, looking like there are folks behind it. So presumably, the Marshal Service should be not just protecting the judges and their family members, but also investigating the sources of the threats. Can you tell us what some warning signs would be that the Marshal Service has been directed, perhaps by the Attorney General or perhaps by some other senior official in the Department of Justice, to not do proper investigations, and particularly not look into orchestration or any effort to gin up these threats?
Senator, I have no information. It strikes me that a non-response to your queries or queries from other members of Congress to the Marshal Service or to the Department of Justice are concerning. There should be an active dialogue between the branches about something as serious as the security of the third branch. And I guess I would just echo what Senator Booker was saying earlier. I mean, there have been two relatively recent periods when bipartisan legislation was passed to improve judicial security after the tragic murder of Judge Salas's son and also after the attempted attack on Justice Kavanaugh. Judicial security measures on a bipartisan basis quickly passed Congress, and I would hope that this is a moment in which broad agreement could be reached that it's necessary to do something similar.
And if it appeared that those were part of a larger plan or conspiracy, it would be appropriate for law enforcement to look into the question of whether there was a larger plan or conspiracy, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cool.
I would note that Senator Whitehouse asked two of the three witnesses about private donations given to their respective law schools, but somehow omitted
Okay, if he can bring up something too, then let me hear it.
Professor Shaw. And I guess I would ask Professor Shaw, are you aware of what's been publicly reported in disclosures that your employer, the University of Pennsylvania, from 2013 to 2019 received from...
Oh, shit, he's bringing up receipts that are years ago. He went on his phone and was like, let me look up dirt on her too. Whatever I can find, let me... Oh, man. 2019. All right, let me hear it, though.
Communist China, $67,618,610. Have you seen those?
So instead of you actually finding something about her, you attack the school she works for. Whereas the individuals that were brought up, those people were attacked individually. But I'll allow him to ask the question. I want to see how
public reports.
I'm sorry, Senator, I have not.
Well, they are publicly reported, and 67 million from Communist China. If we're going to just clarify the record, let's clarify the record across the board.
If I may, I actually don't hold an endowed chair, so I don't have an endowed chair personally, so I don't think I was being singled out for any reason, but that I don't have one.
Penn.
I do work for Penn, yes. Yep.
Okay, so he tried to compare her versus the other two guys. She specified endowed chair. What is a endowed chair? An endowed chair is a prestigious academic position funded by an endowment, which is a donation specifically allocated for this person. So this is a specific donation to an individual. So the other two people have endowed chairs who got specific donations to them, and you try to compare that to her based off the fact that she just works for the college? She's not getting a donation specifically to her. Nice try, even though you just went on Google to try to find some dirt to sync up. Too bad your dirt sucked, Cruz. Do better. Your dirt sucked. You just look. Let me find the worst thing. Let me go on ChatGPT. Is there a corruption scandal with Shaw? No, fuck. Is there a corruption scandal for Penn? Yeah, there we go. Bot? Jesus.
Chairman Schmidt.
Thank you. I suppose to further the analogy that Senator Whitehouse gave of reffing a game, I don't think anybody has a problem on this side of the aisle with a ref calling balls and strikes or calling a foul. The problem is, what if the ref's daughter hired the coach? What if the ref has money on the game? What if people know whatever?
Dog shit comparison. Just ask your questions.
Question would, how in the world does Judge Boasberg get a case when he's not they're cooked? And that's why we're having the hearing, because people are questioning, how does Judge Boasberg, and I would actually ask you, Professor Blackman, pose this as a question.
Why are you not asking Professor Shaw? You bet. I don't care about a question from Blackman at all.
How in the world does Judge Boasberg get a case when he's not the emergency assignment judge? He's on vacation in the middle of the night. How can that happen?
I don't know, and perhaps even more significant, if you read the transcript of the case, he basically told the plaintiffs to change their case. They brought it one way. He says, no, here, plead it this way. Okay, good. Now I'm going to certify class and issue a ruling and go tell the plaintiffs around. He basically litigated the case on behalf of the parties. This wasn't merely a passive bystander. He was an active participant.
It's a statistic impossibility, and I want to I referenced what had been going on in the Eighth Circuit.
It's interesting how MAGA is only asking specific people questions.
10 of the 11 appellate judges in the Eighth Circuit appointed by Republicans. Amazing.
I think beyond Rule 23,
Okay, ask him a question. I want MAGA to ask questions to Shaw, and I want the Democrats to ask questions to these two.
enforcement of Rule 23. It's important.
Yeah, the One Piece flag. We here, bro. One Piece, the GOAT. So is Attack on Titan.
To route, but also process that the APA sets up for challenging agency.
It's interesting that MAGA refuses to ask a question to Shaw, you know, the person who actually is not bought out by Donald Trump's faction, but they will ask the other guys who just got exposed. Interesting. All right, I'm not in. All right, I want some cross examinations. I want some spice, not some circle jerks. Come on.
A good opportunity, I think, probably for the Supreme Court to finally weigh in here. Thank you. Senator Welch.
Just a couple of points I want to make. Number one, the effort to get universal injunctions has been pursued by litigants, including some of the attorney generals who serve on this committee. I know you did, as Attorney General, got several universal injunctions.
Since you referenced the vast censorship enterprise of the Biden administration that a court declared was perhaps the biggest offense to the First Amendment in the history of the country, where there were named parties that were specifically enjoined. You mean that case?
Yeah. I do.
Wow, we can add context to what Joe Biden does, but everything Donald Trump does is normal. Right.
My point here is that if there's an opportunity out there for a litigant, whether it's a lawyer trying to get the judge that he or she thinks is going to be the most favorable, or an attorney general trying to get the most relief for something that he or she believes in, they'll do it. So it's up to us if we think that process should be adjusted to change it. But it's not a Republican-Democratic deal. I mean, it's what litigants do. The second thing is, Professor.
So he basically just exposed the Republicans. They were perfectly fine using a universal injunction when they believe it deserves it. But when the Democrats do it, nope, it's corrupt, it's communistic, it's a constitutional crisis. Gotcha.
Professor Blackman, you mentioned how some of these universal injunctions inhibit the authority of the executive, right? What's the problem with that? I mean, what's so great about the executive having unlimited authority?
Well, I'll take the Alien Enemies Act in particular. This is a statute that's been around for 200 years. It's been enforced in various times. And historically, it's been a very deferential statute. The courts haven't scrutinized when it should be enforced, and they haven't told plaintiffs to turn around. So I think we're seeing not only aggressive use of the universal injunction, but also intrusions upon the executive authority.
So I get that.
The act was used specifically for more like wartime situations. He is trying to qualify the current immigration circumstance as an invasion to execute this act, even though it doesn't qualify at all, and it's a stretch of the terminology. So, okay, buddy.
And let me just be clear. I disagree with you, and I disagree with the executive invoking what I regard as a very discredited law and using it to deny due process. So I'm on the side of pushing back against executive authority. So I don't see that as a big problem. Professor Shaw, one of the things people here are talking about is the class action. Mm-hmm. And here's my question with it, and I want you to address this. I had a small town law firm, and I'd have people who walk in, and every once in a while they had a hopeless case that we'd take.
I'm gonna allow this question to go through, but I feel like you should be mandated to cross-examine the opposing side. I feel like you must be able to cross-examine the opposing side.
And we'd get them relief. And if I had to do that in a 4-person law firm and certify a class action, I couldn't have taken that case. So this so-called remedy of using the class action means that those Vermonters or those folks in Washington State or wherever who go into a lawyer's office to seek relief and that lawyer's willing to take the case, what are the burdens on that law firm if they have to certify it as a class?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that, let's take maybe the birthright citizenship example, arguments that challenges can be maintained against this executive order, but they have to be done using the class action device. I'm not sure if those are being made in good faith. Rule 23 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure has relatively demanding requirements. The Supreme Court has ratcheted up those requirements in a series of cases in the 2010s. The plaintiffs have to be similarly situated in terms of their injury and the kinds of relief that they are seeking. And the Solicitor General in the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago didn't disclaim the likelihood that they would be back before the Supreme Court saying, well, you shouldn't even be able to certify a class with respect to this executive order. So it feels to me like a little bit of a heads we win, tails you lose. You can try a class action and we will marshal different kinds of arguments against you doing that. But it is not as though it is very easy to satisfy the requirements of Rule 23. And I think that shifting from these injunctions to a pure Rule 23 based regime would disadvantage those unable to secure representation, who don't satisfy the requirements of class membership, and would mean no relief from government unlawful conduct.
I mean, I feel like even though I didn't know all the legal jargon when they first were talking about that, I don't know what video I was watching, but you can kind of insinuate that was the underlying principle, that they were trying to change the kind of perception of how we should look at birthright citizenship into this kind of different type of procedure. And based off how she explained it, is that if we change it to the procedure of class action, then that will actually help MAGA's case. Therefore, they can ensure that a lot of these situations of these people who are supposed to get we're talking about birthright citizenship. So supposed to get citizenship, a lot of them won't qualify, or at the very least won't have the resources or time to qualify for citizenship. So it's just making the burden harder, and it just seems like the overall idea, or what the want is here, is to limit the amount of immigrants who can become citizens in America and weed out immigration in general. So you always got to look at what MAGA is doing. They make it seem like there's a legal principle that they're trying to adhere to, but there's a darker and more nefarious purpose behind a lot of the things that they do that we've constantly exposed time and time and time again. Even MAGA's doctrine, even how everything started with Project 2025, which at this point is basically aligned with what the Trump administration has been doing, but also Doge. All of it came from a nefarious purpose. If you look into people like Curtis Yarvin, who created a lot of the foundations for this stuff, Curtis Yarvin and his principle, he wants to just create a king state, a state ran by an authoritarian and he has a lot of very, let's just say, discriminatory views. So very nefarious. And of course, you got the people like Peter Thiel, who are creating an oligarchical elitist society to surround Trump with a bunch of elitists around him, billionaires, millionaires. And that's why a bunch of these billionaires told Trump didn't know who J.D. Vance was at first. They told Trump that J.D. Vance, you better pick this guy. Because he was mentored by Peter Thiel and Curtis Yarvin. So all of it connects, but people are not really talking about it in depth because they don't know. But there's something beneath all this bullshit that the MAGA administration is trying to do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's so important, hopefully to all of us, is access to the courts for an everyday person in Missouri or Texas or whatever. So you get some lawyers who are just willing to do it because it's a neighbor, it's a friend, it's a cause they believe in. I want them to be able to act and bring that case to court and not have to go through the incredible expense. On the question of universal injunctions, I mean, are there some suggestions you have or forum shopping that you have that would expedite or address what you perceive to be some legitimate problems that aren't siding with the partisan divide on this question?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Senator. I do think that single judge divisions, which allow plaintiffs to, with absolute certainty, ensure that they will receive a particular judge when they file in a particular division of a district, are an enormous problem, right? That forum shopping is not exclusive to these single judge divisions, but it is the most serious kind of forum shopping. And I should say, as of, I think right now, none of the orders against the Trump administration have issued from judges who sit in single judge divisions, unlike some of the orders issued against the Biden administration. But I do think that the Judicial Conference has already endorsed a proposal that would essentially eliminate these single judge divisions. I think that's something that we should all be able to get behind.
Thanks. Well, I'd be willing to work with my colleagues on some of these practical questions and practical answers where we strip out whether we agree or disagree with the particular decision that's been made by the court. Thank you. Thank you all.
Professor Shaw, you said Congress had set high standards in Rule 23 for certifying class actions. Why would we have set high standards for class actions?
So I don't think I said that, sir. Just that the Rule 23 standards are relatively demanding, that the court has ratcheted up the difficulty of satisfying them.
So, but why would we set demanding standards for class actions?
I'm not sure. The Rules Committee produces the rules, so I'm not quite sure.
But Congress adopts them.
Yes. So, I mean, you tell me, sir.
Well, there's a reason we have high standards for class actions, because it should be difficult to certify a nationwide class. And what we are seeing is single judges ignoring the federal rules of civil procedure, ignoring the rules Congress has set out for class certification, and saying, I'm just going to issue an injunction to the whole damn country, and it doesn't matter if it meets even the bare thresholds of the federal rules. Senator Kennedy.
I don't think that response correlated to the initial thing that was said. She indicated that class action, the standard could be very high, and they're only getting higher. And then you brought up, yeah, they're very high. Okay. What?
Would any of you advise?
Bro, we need to get these old people out of the fucking government. Oh my god. We done with old people.
A client to defy a federal court order?
I like the suit though.
No.
None of you would? How about you, Professor?
I mean, under most circumstances, we follow the government and private parties follow court orders. I suppose it's not, I would not rule out ever the possibility that in a sufficiently egregious order, there should be some consideration of whether there's a way.
So in some cases,
I think it's a qualified answer,
in
yes.
some cases you would.
In an extremely narrow band of cases, I think it would be considered, yes.
Okay. Do any of you think that nationwide or universal injunctions are not being abused?
I'm not sure what if I may, Senator, I'm not sure what the time horizon of the question is. I don't think that there could be good faith disagreements about the correctness of some of them, but I have not seen in the last 4 months
Professor, you're
abuse.
smart,
No.
I've read your stuff, and I've read your writings. I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When some
I have little respect for your opinion. I only have respect for the people I can pay off. You know the endowed chairs? Those people? Only they're the opinions I respect. I take back my compliment about your suit.
someone is in the White House that you agree with, and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to.
This is a fair credibility dismantling. I want to see what her. She does have to be consistent, though. She 100% has to be consistent. She has qualified that under special circumstances it should be okay. So let's hear her out.
To discount what you say, because I think you act on your political beliefs, and I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. So I'll leave you out of that.
Oh, so she doesn't get to respond. You get to make a claim about her, and she doesn't get to respond. Okay, you're acting like a little bitch, but okay.
Do you think nationwide injunctions are being abused?
Oh, she's just ignored altogether, and then you're gonna ask the people you paid off. Got you. Yep, I'm moving past this one. Ask her a question. Let her answer.
Opinions, future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion.
Okay.
I think politicians have helped judges, and many judges are politicians, to just make it up. And many of them are like Professor Shaw here. If they like the president, they're against nationwide injunctions. If they don't like the president, they're for him. On April 22nd, 2024,
Dude talks way too slow, bro.
you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who were you talking about?
sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical
You're
of some
embarrassed
members of the
that you
Supreme
made
Court.
that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an
Senator,
officer
it
of the
doesn't sound
court.
like something that
You know
I
what
would
I'm
say.
embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil
You did,
in
right here,
the classroom,
on
sir.
your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
Big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful to federal judges? And you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
I mean, the hypocrisy is glaring considering MAGA does the exact same thing. But honestly, this is a very effective cook session. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest. He did his job. He did it well. Complete hypocrite because MAGA does the same thing. I mean, they call a lot of the judges anti-American. You guys do the exact same thing. But if this is true, because he got timestamps, he got dates, she's cooked. I'm gonna be honest, she's cooked. I'm not gonna defend her. She's cooked.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Durbin.
So I'm going to give the panel members an opportunity to respond to a question posed by Justice Sotomayor during the oral arguments on the birthright citizenship bill.
Hey man, I heard enough. And all three of them got their credibility completely destroyed. All three of them got their credibility destroyed. Damn. Yeah, that's all we got for that. I mean, is there a point of listening to more of it? I don't know. I mean, overall, MAGA doesn't have a good argument, so they went with the credibility. They went with destroying the credibility of one of the panelists after. So, fair enough. I don't have an argument, but I can destroy your witness. Fair enough. All right. Well, that is all I got. Well, hold on. Let me see.
And she said, I'm paraphrasing, imagine a new president takes office and decides, because of the epidemic of gun violence in our country, to issue an executive order announcing that he will deploy the military to seize the guns of every gun owner across the country. That executive order would be swiftly challenged in a federal district court, or more likely in several district courts.
Yeah, I get this question. Could a court challenge if a president decided to do this? I get this. I can guess what everybody would say. Ultimately, that's all I got for today. There's another hearing. House Doge Subcommittee holds hearing on NGOs gone wild. Based. All right, well, that is all. Man, I was 5.5 hours. I still didn't research the big, beautiful bill.